What's going on, everybody? Toby1 Shinobi here, and today we are talking about the fundamentals of game sense in Halo Infinite. Game sense is a huge topic that is made up of many smaller parts, and I want to eventually cover every one of those parts, but today we want to keep it simple and actionable with a 3-part system.
That's right! Just 3 steps! This simple and effective 3-step system will raise your Halo IQ by 60 points, your midichlorian levels by 4,000 per cell, and your kill-death ratio by 20%. But wait! There's more! If you subscribe to this channel and leave a comment below, you'll be entered to win a Master Chief plaque made by Toby1 Shinobi himself. Oh yeah!
Is that so? Alright, but seriously, anyone who comments while also being subscribed to my channel will be entered into the random drawing to win a Master Chief plaque that I designed and made myself on my laser engraver. The drawing will take place in the comment section 7 days from the published date of this video. Now, let's dive into the 3-step system for strengthening your game sense in Halo Infinite. The 3 fundamentals this system focuses on are team, enemy, and advantage. You can remember this with the acronym T, T-E-A. Every time you spawn in or there's any downtime in the game, remember to have a cup of tea.
If you fancy a cuppa.
Team, enemy, advantage. T. The first fundamental of T is the T, and that stands for team. Every time you spawn in or have a moment of quiet, look for your team. How many are alive? Where are they located? Where are they heading? Where does the team need you to be in order to support them best? Do a quick scan of the map to locate all of your teammates. Check the scoreboard to see who's respawning and who's alive. This is also a chance to see who is having a good game and who is having a tough time. You can use that information throughout the game. That way you know who you need to help guide with your communication to make smarter decisions and who you can count on during a fight. A lot of times if I'm having a rough game, I'll look for a top fragger and try to support them. If I see a player struggling, I'll try to reel them in by asking them to do certain objectives or to join me in fights, etc. Hey Dragon Slayer, will you come push B with me? Thanks dude, appreciate that. So always be thinking about your team. The next fundamental of T is the E, and that stands for enemy. Every time you spawn in or have a moment of quiet, look for the enemy and predict where they are. Check the kill feed and scoreboard. How many are alive? If you're dead, check your teammates' kill cams. Where do you think they're spawning? Is anyone on your team in a gunfight? What direction do you see your teammates looking? Do they look like they're in a gunfight? Can you roughly determine the position of all 4 enemy players? If you can figure out where all 4 enemy players will be, you have a huge advantage in the game. The best way to determine where the enemies are is to look at your teammates and see where they're located. Any X's on the map? If so, then there's probably enemies nearby. If your team isn't fighting anyone and the enemy is respawning, they're most likely respawning in an area furthest from the largest group of your teammates. So quickly look at your team and mentally draw a circle around the grouped players. The enemy will spawn opposite of that big circle. Determining spawn points is one of the most important aspects of good game sense, so I'm going to show you what I mean. Okay, take for example we're playing live fire. Your team is mostly located at B, but you're at A inside the garage. That means the enemy is most likely going to spawn at dummies by the ramp to C tower, opposite of your group at B and away from you if possible. Okay, now let's say you have 2 teammates near B and nest, and your 3rd teammate is dead. You're in the middle of the map, but because you're at the very middle of the map and your team is slightly closer to C, the enemy is most likely going to spawn at A, but there is a chance they could spawn near dummies or overshield as well. Your teammate will probably spawn at the bottom of C tower near the plasma pistol, but if you see him spawn at A instead, then you can probably guess that the enemy spawned at dummies. Again, look for the largest group of teammates, counting yourself, and picture a big circle drawn around the group. The enemy is most likely going to spawn as far away from that circle as possible. You can also do this to determine your own spawn location and think about what your next move is while in the spawn camera. So when you're playing, try to do your best to keep spawns predictable. Don't be running off by yourself and pushing into areas that enemies could be spawning into. This will cause the enemy to split spawn and make it difficult to determine their location, and you'll probably get surrounded. So if you're going to push spawns, push them with your team. So yeah, E, enemies. Do your best to determine the location of all 4 enemies. If any of them are dead, quickly take a guess where they're going to spawn and put yourself in a position that accounts for this. If you know where all the enemies are, you can quickly come up with a route and position to take advantage over them in the next engagement, while considering where your team is located. Just imagine if you had wall hacks and could see all the enemies. You'd have an insane advantage. Well, guess what? With really good enemy scouting and predicting, you can get pretty close to that. If you know where your enemies are, you can predict where they're going to move, and you can catch them by surprise. Play a sneaky, honorless game. Be a shinobi. Ensure you have the first shot or the back smack. I do this all the time, and it results in free kills, while also really triggering the enemy. In all honesty, a fight in which you kill the enemy swiftly while taking almost no damage is about the best you can hope for. And I'm not saying to hide in a corner the whole game, but instead predict player routes and take them by surprise when you can, while still being an active participant and playing with your team. Okay, the final fundamental of T is the A, and that stands for advantage. Advantage can be interpreted in a few ways, and it has overlap with the previous 2 fundamentals. Advantage means anything you can pick up or any position you can take to give you and your team the advantage in a fight. Every time you spawn in or have a down moment, determine what your next advantage will be. Alright, let's talk about weapon advantages in ranked multiplayer. Everyone is running around with a BR in ranked. It's an extremely versatile weapon and very powerful at mid to long range, but almost every other weapon on the map can beat it when used in the right way. So if everyone is running around with their comfortable little BRs, assuming that they're going to take comfortable little fights against other BRs, you can give yourself a serious advantage by using a different weapon and playing the environment and distance effectively to win your fights handedly. I'd like to take a deep dive into all the weapons, but that's for another video. Just take notice how pros like Lucid are always picking up every weapon and putting them to use to win fights. I know that personally the only fights I feel like really burn into my memory are when I lose a 1v1 BR fight. But guess what? Somehow I forget all the times that I'm killed by power weapons, or needlers, or manglers, or pulse carbines, or swords, or shotguns. That happens all the time. I somehow erase it from my memory because it's not a fair fight. Did you hear me? It's not a fair fight. So make sure you're on the right side of an unfair fight. Weapon advantages are huge. Make sure you're constantly looking for them. Now let's talk about equipment and power-up advantages. Every piece of equipment is extremely powerful in this game. Power-ups are crazy strong. Active camo is probably the most powerful thing in the entire game when used effectively. An overshield basically gives your team another player. Make sure you're keeping an eye on the timers for these power-ups by reminding yourself of the A in the acronym T. So check power-up advantages whenever there's a down moment. More common equipment should always be sought after as well. Grapple shot gives you crazy flanks, catches people off guard, can be used to grab objectives and weapons, and drop shield basically gives you free kills if you use it correctly by strafing across and ducking down behind undamaged sections. Repulsor can keep grenades off you, keep people out of melee range, throw off an enemy's shot, throw them off ledges, and give you crazy mobility advantages. Seek out equipment whenever nearby. Give yourself the advantage in the next fight. Finally, there is a positional and environmental advantage. Things like natural cover, high ground, team shot setups. You should always be thinking about positional advantages and how you can use them in tandem with the other fundamentals of your game sense. Reduce the size of your hitbox, take the high ground, give yourself escape options, line up good grenade bank shots, etc. Set up in places where you know the enemy is at a disadvantage if they try to attack you. So remember, always be drinking tea while playing Halo Infinite. At every free moment, be thinking about your team, the enemy, and the advantages that you can give yourself in your engagements. If you constantly remember to sip your tea while spawning in or during moments of quiet in the game, you're going to be a much more effective player. Honestly, it takes serious discipline to constantly ask yourself about your team, enemies, and advantages, T, But if you constantly do it, it will eventually turn into a subconscious habit that will make a huge difference in your gameplay. Alright guys, that is my first game sense video that really covers the core fundamentals of what to think about during gameplay. There's a lot of other subjects that you should probably be thinking about as you're playing, but if you were to ignore everything else and just stick to the T fundamentals, you'd probably be just fine. So I wanted to start with this as kind of a crash course to game sense. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to enter the drawing for the free wooden Halo plaque, please make sure you subscribe and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear comments regarding feedback of the T principles or any other ideas you might have. If you just like this type of content, make sure you subscribe so that you can get my weekly Halo training videos in your feed. Alright everybody, have a good day, good luck in the arena, Shinobi out.